Welcome back. Joining me now is Tony Rossi of TerraCycle and Loop that are helping change the way we recycle and shop. Welcome to the show, Tony.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. And I hear you're Canadian like me, eh?
Yes. I try to hide it, but it comes out. It's inevitable.
Where are you from?
I'm from Toronto.
Nice. And tell me about TerraCycle. Let's start with TerraCycle. What is it about exactly?
So TerraCycle is a mission-based company, and our mission is to eliminate the idea of waste. And we've been doing that for over 15 years now. We started actually as an organic fertilizer company where we made a fertilizer from worm castings. Wow. And we fed the worms food waste, and then we would capture their castings, and then we would ferment that and turn it into a fertilizer, and we actually bottled that fertilizer in misshapen and used soda bottles, and then we actually reused trigger heads as well.
Interesting. Actually, on set yesterday, I saw a package that had a little logo with TerraCycle on it. What does that mean when you see that?
When you see a TerraCycle logo on a package or even a product, what that means is that you as a consumer can send that package back to TerraCycle, and we will recycle it into something new.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
And what kind of products is it?
So on the TerraCycle side, we recycle hundreds of products globally. We have our platforms available in 21 countries around the world.
21 countries,
yes.
Wow, okay.
And we collect things as simple as flexible food packaging. Oh. We do a lot of work in the personal care and beauty space.
Okay.
So think of a pump, a trigger, mascara,
Cream.
compact. Yes, but not the bottle, because the bottle probably, depending on what it's made of, can be municipally recycled. So you can put that in your blue bin, somebody will pick it up and will recycle it. But the actual cap itself, or the trigger, is usually made up of a different type of polymer or plastic. It usually has a few different types of polymers. It may have a metal spring, and all of that complexity renders that piece non-recyclable. So you can send that to us and we'll recycle it. And on the extreme side, we recycle very weird stuff, like used cigarette butts, dirty diapers, and even chewing gum.
Really?
Yes.
Dirty diapers.
Yes.
Interesting. So basically you recycle things that normally you can't recycle municipally.
Correct. So we specialize...
As long as there's a logo on there, right?
Well, it doesn't have to be the TerraCycle logo, but usually there's some form of communication. You can go onto the TerraCycle website if you're here in the United States. I believe we have over 70 free programs that you can participate in. You would go on, like Toms of Maine is an old partner of ours. You can go on, you can see the Toms of Maine page, and all products and packaging that Toms of Maine produces that wouldn't be municipally recyclable, you can send it back to us. And the way that we're able to recycle it is, we have the technology, we know what we're turning these products into, but one of the key components and what makes products and packaging non-recyclable is economics. At the end of the day, the products that TerraCycle recycles are not municipally recyclable because of an economic equation. So if it costs us 50 cents a pound to collect, aggregate, and recycle a toothbrush, we can sell that raw material for 25 cents. So as a for-profit business, we're losing 25 cents every time we process a pound of material. That's not a really great business model. That's why we partner with the Toms of Maines and Colgates and Garniers and Kiehl's of the world to subsidize that delta and unlock the recyclability of their product.
And where does Loop come in now? This is for the packaging where you actually transport the...
Correct.
Okay.
So Loop is something completely new. It just launched this year in May of 2019 in the New York area. And if you take a step back and you look at the TerraCycle company, right? Our motto, we're a social business, eliminate the idea of waste. The first way that we do that is what we just discussed. How do we make products recyclable? The second way that we do that is with the recycled content that we have, we want to create new products and packaging from that material. That said, at the end of the day, it's a bit of a flawed system because we're not tackling the real problem. It's a Band-Aid on a cut. With Loop, we're trying to avoid having products ever be turned into waste. Right. So Loop is a platform where all of the packaging, including the shipping tote, and I'll get to this in a second, are durable, and reusable. So Loop is a new way for consumers to engage with their products where it never turns into waste.
So it's definitely a zero waste program, right?
Correct. What it really is an attack on single use.
Right.
An attack on disposability.
Hence the name Loop, right?
Correct.
Recycle, it goes around.
Loop is our most utopian endeavor to solve the issue of waste. And it truly is circular in its nature, hence the name Loop.
And how did you get into it?
Personally, my story is a little bit weird, I would think. A lot of our company are millennials. They grew up in a world where waste was a problem, and they're passionate about saving the environment. For me, being from Toronto, I got my start working in banking and finance, and I ended up going and doing my master's in Europe.
Oh.
And then from there, I worked in big law in Austria. And I promise the story does come to full circle.
Like Loop.
In Austria, one of the things that really opened my mind was how people recycled, right? If you're growing up in a big city in North America like New York or Toronto or Montreal, we have mixed recycling. You put everything in one bin, and then a MRF, material recovery facility, does the sortation. So when I was living in Vienna, I would take down my recycling and put it in one bin, and then I had a 90-year-old woman scream at me in German, a language I do not speak, about how I'm recycling wrong. In Austria, at my particular apartment building, we had 8 separate bins, and we as consumers would source separate.
Wow.
So eventually I got to thinking, and law and finance is not a very personally rewarding track. So I was lucky enough to stumble on TerraCycle when I moved back to Toronto, and I started working in our business development team in Toronto. And then 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to move down to the US at our global headquarters in New Jersey, taking on more of a global role, really starting to build the business, got to work on a lot of different projects. And then 2 years ago, when the idea for Loop started, I worked really closely with Tom Zaki, our CEO, and that was it for me. I am a shopper myself. I love products, I love consumption, and I think this is a nice way for me personally to offset.
It's convenient for you too.
It's convenient
right?
for me. I'm really interested. We get to work with a ton of amazing partners, and truly trying to tackle the issue of waste.
You mentioned Europe before, and I find that fascinating because Europeans have always been the early adopters, right? Adopters of, any kind of innovation like this, especially with recycling and waste programs. And what do you see the future is? Because with North America and Latin America, I feels like they were a little bit always more behind.
I think that's very true. Europeans are usually thought leaders when it comes to sustainability. I think a big reason is space. You don't see it, right?
Yeah.
Again, growing up in Toronto, somebody would take my waste and drive it 4 hours away and dig a hole and bury it. I don't see it.
Yeah.
In Europe, we are constrained in terms of space. So I think that's the first point, personally. And then secondly, I think Europeans are more skeptical. They put a lot of pressure on companies, on retailers, to prove that they're doing the right thing.
How do you see the future of TerraCycle and Loop in the next 10 years?
That's a really good question. As an independently owned company, we're quite nimble. Like from the idea of Loop to implementation, having this live with, like I said, 64 brands, it was 2 years. So in 10 years' time, I hope that we're still working towards achieving our mission of eliminating the idea of waste. But I'm going to push you a little bit further. I'm going to say in 30, 35-year time, I hope that my children, their children, are in a world where they look back at this period of time and they say, wow, what were those people doing? That it's an anomaly, right? The idea of disposability in single use was a blip in our human history. And in 35 years, we're living in a world where we really treat resources with respect. And the idea of waste is not existent.
Well, I hope people live their life in Loop. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Tony.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. We'll be back for more.